In this video, I'm going to go over the Project Lead the Way Utility Shed Part 3. So the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and open up our Part 2. For us, we saved that in our documents. We created a folder called Utility Shed Part 2, and then make sure that you open the original version, the one without any extensions. Once Part 2 opens, we want to go ahead and save a new project for Part 3. So go to File, Save As, Project, and go to your Documents. We want to create a new folder. So right-click, New Folder, and name it Utility Shed Part 3. Open that folder, then change the name so it has your name _ Utility Shed Part 3. Save that. So then if you have any major issues, you can always go back to where you left off on Part 2 if you mess up anything in your Part 3. We want to go ahead and open our floor plan. And the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create what's called a section view, which basically will allow us to see all the layers in our wall and roof and floor. If you go up to the View tab, and then here in the middle under the Create panel, there's one that's called Section. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we want to cut through our wall where there is no window or door, and we want it to be on the wall that has a slope. So if you remember, this top wall and this bottom wall on mine has the slope of the roof. So I want to cut through one of those walls. And then I can drag this in so it'll look at this portion of my wall. And I can even make this smaller because you only need a small portion of your wall for it to cut through. Then if we want to actually see that section, if we scroll down under our project browser, we now have can expand this part called Sections, and then double click on that. And just make sure that you can see your slanted roof. If it is flat, then you've cut through the wrong wall. Just delete that section and then put it on the correct wall. If you cannot see your full shed, remember you can adjust this crop box by clicking on the blue dots and expand or shrink it. We now want to change the detail level that we can see. So down in the bottom in our view control bar, we want to click on the rectangle that says detail level, and we want to change it from coarse to fine. And then you can see just a slight change in the detail level. We also are going to go ahead and change the scale. So right now it's 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. Let's go ahead and make that 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. Now we want to go ahead and make some changes to the layers in our wall. So if we go ahead and click on that wall, we want it to be one of our shed walls with siding. So just double check that that is one of those walls and it's not the brick wall. And we're going to click on Edit Type. Where it says Structure, go ahead and click on Edit. And we want to change row 3 where it says plywood sheathing, 3/4 inch. We want to change that to 1/2 inch. We also want to change row 5 where it says metal stud layer and make that into a lumber. So we're going to go ahead and click on the 3 little dots and change the material. So we can even do a search up at the top, and we want to look for softwood lumber. That should pop up. So we're going to go ahead and select that and click OK. So instead of it being 6 inches, we want to change it so that it's 3 1/2 inches. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK. We are then going to get this warning that says constraints are not satisfied because we're changing the size of our wall. We're going to go ahead and remove those constraints for now. And then click OK. We're also going to change the floor. So in this view, if we go ahead and click on our floor, and right now it has a wood finish, we're going to make it so it's concrete. So we're going to do Edit Type. we're going to go ahead and duplicate it and name it concrete 6 inches and click OK. Then under structure, we're going to edit, and we're going to go ahead and delete this top layer because we don't want the finish anymore. And then we'll delete the plywood sheathing as well. And then the last layer, we're going to go ahead and change this to concrete. So click on the 3 little dots and search up concrete. And you can really choose any of these. I'm going to use concrete cast in place and go ahead and click OK. And then the last thing that we want to do is change the thickness to 6 inches and click OK and OK again. Now let's go back and take a look at our floor plan to make sure that we don't need to make any changes. So if we notice where we removed the constraints on the walls, it's changed this to 11 and 9 1/4. So we do need to adjust those dimensions again. So remember, click on the blue dot once to move the dimensions from outside to outside. So then it should match your permanent dimension. And we want to change that back to 12 feet. Once our dimensions are correct, so 12 foot by 16 foot, we're going to go back to our section view and we're going to label the parts in our roof, our wall, and our floor. In order to do that, we're going to click on the Annotate tab up at the top. And then if we go to Text, and then we can choose how we want to label it. I'm going to use this where it uses 2 segments. You could use the curve or you can use the straight lines if you would like. So how this works is we're going to start with the innermost layer of our wall, and wherever you click, it's going to put an arrow, and then I can drag out, click again, and then do a horizontal line, which then will allow me to type. The innermost layer is a 1/2 inch of gypsum wallboard. And if I zoom out, I can get a better look of how it adjusts. And if I click on it, there's only 2 sizes of text, 1/4 inch and 3/32 of an inch. We're going to want it to be 3/32 of an inch, just to make sure that everything is going to fit. If you want to move the writing in or out, you can click on these blue dots and drag the box in and out that way. And if you want to move it up or down, the easiest way is if you click on it and then use your arrows on your keyboard. You can move them up and down. You can move these, but sometimes it may make it a little more difficult. Our next layer is going to be our bat insulation. So again, make sure you're on the Annotate tab, Text. What's nice is it'll give you a blue dashed line to show you where you're lined up with the one above it. We then have our 2x4 studs. So we label it 2x4 studs at 24-inch OC, where OC stands for on center. Next, we have a 1/2 inch of plywood sheathing. And finally, we have our cedar siding. We then are going to go ahead and label our floor, which in this case is a 6-inch concrete slab. We also want to label our roof, so we're going to start with the bat insulation in the roof. Then we have our 2x8 rafters at 24-inch OC, which again means on center. Then we have plywood sheathing, a 1/2 inch plywood sheathing. And finally, we have our asphalt shingles. Once you have everything labeled, it should look something like this. We then can add a little more detail by adding our insulation into our roof and our wall. Under the Annotate tab, under Details, there's Insulation. So if we click on that, and we can go ahead and try to center it, which the midpoint will be, it'll show up with a triangle. And if I drag it to the edge, it's a little small right now. So if I click on Modify and then select the insulation, I then can change and customize the size of it. So you can kind of guess. So I'm going to change it to 6 inches and we'll take and see what that looks like. So that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the wall. So click on insulation again, find the midpoint, and then drag it down to the floor. And that looks pretty good. Just to add a little bit more detail. Go ahead and click Modify. And then let's go ahead and resize our crop box. And then we're going to go ahead and hide it. We're then going to go ahead and add this section view to our sheet. So if we go ahead and open up that sheet, we may need to move some things around. So I know I'm going to have to slide these over, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then click on the section view. So left click, hold, and drag. And that's a pretty good fit. You may need to adjust and move more of your images to get everything to fit on your sheet, but as long as everything looks good, that's totally fine. If I needed to, I have some space where I could drag and move all my labels a little bit closer to create and make everything look neat. One of the things I want to point out is you should notice now in your floor plan that we have a concrete floor instead of that wood finish floor. So it automatically updates on here. And then we have one more thing that we want to do. So wherever you can see the slope on your roof, we want to open that elevation. So the one that I'm using is the east elevation. If yours is different, that's totally fine. But we want to show what the slope of our roof is. So I'm going to go ahead and on the left-hand side, find my east elevation and open that up. If it's asking you to save, make sure you're saving regularly. Now we want to go to our Annotated tab and click on Detail Line. And we're basically just going to draw a triangle that follows along with the slope of my roof. And I want to draw a triangle over here, so I'm going to draw a horizontal line, then a vertical line, and then connect it at that angle, and it should kind of match up with the slope of my roof. If you need to bring it closer, so you can highlight the whole thing and then drag it either further away or closer, whatever is gonna look good. And then I need to add like what is the actual slope. So if I click on my roof to find out what the slope is, I can scroll down until I get to dimensions and slope. So mine is 9 inches over 12 inches. And remember, slope is rise over run. So my rise on this side, so my vertical is 9, and then my run is going to be 12. And I'm going to just put that in with my text. So if I click on text, but now I don't want any of the arrows, I'm just going to click the no leader. Then I can click and move it to where I want it to be. And then do the same thing, 9, click on Modify, and then click and drag it. So now that will show the slope of my roof in my elevation view. So if I go back to my sheet, I can see that that shows up. Now, technically on our sheet, we should include 2 different section views, one for our shed wall with siding, which we've included, and another one for the brick wall. But we're not going to worry about that right now. As long as you have the shed wall with siding, that is totally fine. If you followed along with this video and added all of these updates, then you've completed part 3 of the utility shed. Nice work.